when do you have an opportunity to have a huge buzzard flying through a studio with
Right.
markers on it and GoPros around it? It doesn't happen that very often.
Alex, first and foremost, you are not just incredibly talented, you are incredibly skilled and you have the chops to prove that. I mean, you're an award-winning technical director. I mean, you were on Avatar, The Way of the Water. Your team won the best visual effects. I mean, that is amazing. It's just you just have such an amazing record, and that is just on the professional side of work. But then there is the people that you would help with your coaching, with your masterclass, and so many things. And I am someone who has been passionate about your work. I mean, let me first give a bit of history, right? I reached out to you on LinkedIn many years ago, and I was just trying to understand this whole creative space and technical part of it. And you were so kind. That was the one thing that stood out to me. You were so kind. You just some random guy from somewhere, reached out to you on LinkedIn. You responded, you answered my questions. Some of my questions, when I look back, I'm like, some of these questions were a little personal, like where I want to move to, and all those kinds of things. But you were so kind. You answered those questions. You gave me advice on what you think I should do and how I should go about it. And it has helped me incredibly in my journey, to the point where now when I even give advice to people, it's because of the kindness that you showed me, people like you have shown me over the years. That has allowed me to stop. You're running and running your journey and trying to do something. You take a pause and talk to someone that needs help and help someone along the way. And that leads me to want to really understand your mindset, because you made a move all the way from studying law to media computing, if I got that correctly, or media computer program. That transition and that shift in mindset, I want to understand, what makes Alex Alex. Who's this guy?
Yeah, thank you for first and foremost. I think that's great. I mean, it's always, you never know how things are going out in your own life, and you never know the little things that you do throughout your life, how they like evolve, and that applies also to other people. You always think it's like, either people are judging you constantly, or nothing moves forward. But often it is like you said, like something happened like a few years ago, and suddenly it made an impact on in this case you, and we are now here because of this conversation we had before. And so it's kind of this, I think, this game of life where everything is a little bit like farming. You plant the seeds in life, and negative and positive, they will sprout, like, and then you will get maybe not instantly, but often like throughout later it back. And I think that is a little bit how you should see everything a little bit. This is this kind of do I plant the right seeds to grow? And at the end of the day, you never know where something is going. As you said, I started with law, and I wanted to go media law, to my defense. So so I wanted to do streaming and Netflix and Spotify and stuff like that. But it was just boring. Like I really think law in general is not for most people. It's just like, you just remember cases and then you apply them all the time, and it was just not creative as I was hoping, not as impactful, where you feel like, oh, I can help in this situation, or I can combine media and law or something. But it was nothing of that. And so I was like, And then I had this situation where I wasn't sure, what should I do. What should I study, for example? And I was thinking of like, okay, so what can I do? And I looked at journalism, and it was too much history. And then I looked at, I was something like, I saw media computer science, and I was like, yeah, I like the media part, but I really didn't like the computer science part, because I remember in school, I'm not sure if you have it in school, like we had this informatics class where we did a little bit of Delphi and Turbo Pascal coding, and it was just horrible. It was just boring, and the teacher was, it was just overwhelming. You just didn't understand what's going on, and I only liked it because we did like network parties there, and you played like games in between a little bit, but everything else was just it created this thing of me don't liking computer science at all. So I basically said like, okay, let's try media computer science because I like the media part. And then what I did, and I think that was really important, I sit down just like a few months before I applied, and I just like tried to read books about computer science, like, about JavaScript or just basically anything. I was just like figuring out, is that for me? Because I don't want to spend again like years of my life trying to learn something that I don't enjoy. And the more I read, the more I kind of understood, but it was very like difficult because it's just this like zeros and ones in the beginning and hexa and something like that. And what I learned later, it's complete something you don't really need. It's all the things that, a lot of times in education, you get this very, very basics to the physics of zeros and ones down. But if you look at your life, if you look how you do, videographic and how you record things and stuff like that, you don't really need to know the physics of capture and light and all that. Yes, it's nice, but you can do, like, you can record a video without any of that by knowing, how to set it up and press the record button. And I think that is something that I kind of learned a little bit, is like, find the practical thing that you really enjoy, and don't be too much like stopped by the theory, because theory is nice and sometimes there is a good purpose for that, but often in the beginning you just want to do things, you just want to take the camera and just make photos or videos or open Maya and just go into that. You don't want to talk about, like, how does all of that in theory works and the physics maybe or the whatever. And so when I started it, it was really like still like, you need to basic programming and you do things that you don't really need later in life. But at the end of the day, what I notice is by having this more clear goal of me, like, wanting to learn something that I can use in real life, that I still didn't know what I want to do exactly, but I was like, okay, I want to apply it to a way that I use it somewhere. So I was looking at the angle of, where does it fit in my life? Like when I learned programming, where does it fit in my life? When I learned 3D, like where do I see the fun? Where do I see the application? And so I was a little bit picky at the end. I was like, I like 70% of the courses I was like, yeah, really focused and doing things, and 30% I was just like, just finish it, just because I don't see any purpose in that. Just make it like, so I go through university. And then basically I finished that, and then by accident I went to the FMX. This is like a event in Germany where all the visual effects people meet. And there was like a booth for schools. There was like a New Yorker art school, and one of the schools was like the Film Academy in Germany, also in Ludwigsburg. And I talked with them, and they explained their curriculum, and it was just like a project-based curriculum. Basically, you join, and then you do what you want, and they just support you on your projects and so on. And I saw this technical directing like part, and I was like, hey, this sounds interesting. And so I was just kind of like switching to that. There was like a test where you have to do and so on. But it actually changed a lot how I see things, because at the Film Academy I learned how to learn, and that changed basically my whole life. It's basically because you are so self-reliant, and but you can get help from outside. Like, and I learned, for example, that my neighbor is the best person to ask in the Film Academy, because they are the experts, not my professor in this case, because my neighbor was like someone who's really good in this, or my other neighbor was someone who's really good in that. And it was such an interesting experience to enjoy learning. You just like, oh, I need, for this project I need to do water simulation. I have no clue. Let's figure it out. Oh, for this project I have to do human skin subsurface scattering. I was like, I don't know how to do it. Let's figure it out. And this is basically everything that happens later was exactly that. So I did the podcast, the 21 Artist Show, and everything I learned about that, it was exactly that. I have no clue about video cameras. I have no clue about audio. I don't know how to be a good moderator. And I just like, yeah, I'll figure it out. And I think that is a little bit the key of, not like having a vision where to go, which is hard enough, but then it's just like, I will figure it out, and just start like, step by step. Like first, just make the minimum. Just do something. Like just let's do an episode, and then with each episode, you can be better. You can be better moderator. You can have better quality, better guests, whatever. And I think that is the approach that I try to take for everything, basically.
That's incredible. there are tons of people who want to do something, but the learning process scares them away from doing that thing. And it is so important to be able to find the right, you know, place and understand, what you need to be able to learn. And I was thinking about that as regards what you are currently doing for a lot of artists right now. You have a vibrant community and you're doing such amazing work with helping artists transition from just being an artist to be a technical director. That shift and that move is such a pivotal move. And I'm asking myself, everybody's journey, everybody's story is different. How are you able to help someone? What have you understood about the process? What have you understood about how it works to be able to help someone shift their mind? And I'm speaking as an artist, and you as an artist as well. You know the way
Mm.
the art, one of our artists can be to grasp the technical and embrace it, and think differently.
Yeah, I think that is always the hard part of this situation, because, as you said, everyone's story is different, but at the end of the day, in this case, for example, everyone wants to do the same. It's this kind of, we are maybe like, let's say everyone wants to be a technical director at Pixar, or ILM or something like that. So basically, the point to some degree is to some degree the same, but everyone comes from a different environment. You come from a different environment with your country, with your culture, with your education, and so on, how you grew up, and a lot of things, and it can be more difficult, and or it can be more easier. It's so different. So, for example, I was born in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a nice country, but it's the rest of the Soviet Union. So it was really like the economy is just broken in there, and basically, and they're now still trying to build up. But I grew up in Germany, so it was like a huge shift for me, to kind of have this environment and have these opportunities. And um, and so I think for me, what I learned a little bit is, on one side, I learned a lot about learning for myself, but I learned also a lot about teaching, in that way. And so for me, is like, I want to go away from the typical school environment, because I think it's super important to educate, and it's super great. And I would love that the schools and universities will teach in a way that is engaging and, like, goal focused. But it is still often the case that it's very, like, everything and nowhere. So basically, like, in media computer science, we all said we know we are like the jack of all trades, but the master of none. And that's so true. I know how to do apps and webs and 3D and programming and audio and this and that. But if when I started my internship, I literally didn't know anything. I could not do basically anything. I needed to learn every. Yes, I had some basics, but it's like going to school and learning how to write, and then saying, yeah. It was meaningful because for 13 years you learned how to write, and I was like, yeah, I learned how to write in the first 2 or 3 years, and then the rest was just doing a lot of things that I never really needed. Um, but I didn't learn how to do taxes. I didn't know learn how to work with money. I didn't learn how to have conflicts and relationships, and which is something that you have to do in life every day, but no one was teaching me that. It was just on the side, maybe. And I think the same thing I apply for my courses. It's more like, I have like courses for Python for visual effects, basically Python for Maya, Python for Nuke, and I do coaching for job applications. But it's always about, like, it's focus. So if you come to me because you are somewhere in visual effects, animation, and games, and you see something like, hey, I would like to learn Python because I want to become a technical artist or a technical director. And I will not teach you Python. I will teach you Python for visual effects. Because, and that is different, because at the end of the day, Python is a huge language. It's like every language is, there's a lot of vocabulary and a lot of grammar and a lot of options. But Python for visual effects is much, much smaller, because at the end of the day, we don't need specific things that you will need for data science or video games or whatever. We need the things that you need if you open Maya. We need the things that you need if you open Nuke, and so on. So, on one side, it is more controllable and you get success very easy and fast. And on the other side, it's more fun because you learn something for what you enjoy already. Like, you work in Maya, you're rigger or lighter, and suddenly you go on this journey with me, and suddenly you're like, hey, I after a few weeks, I have the script that, like, creates this volley of lights, or I can, with some clicks, I can just fix the scene and stuff like that, and it's more exciting, and it feels more like, like you're already in this thing, and then you get this information, and suddenly, not only, it's you open a door basically, and you have these new options basically, and so that is how I see that. It's like, um it's not everything is about practical. We have philosophy and so on, but it should always be aimed at something. Like, why do I learn this? Why do I learn French? Why do I learn English? Why do I learn Python? Why do I learn Maya? It should always have this. Yeah, because I want to make a movie, because I want to travel, because there should be that, because at the end of the day, everything is work. And, like, even this podcast is work. There's a lot in common besides just this interview. You have to cut it, maybe, to publish it, to market it, and that is, to some degree, it's not fun. There's a lot of things that is not particularly fun, but at the same time, if you have this vision of, like, oh yeah, I want to create something, I want to share something with others, I want to establish something, I enjoy a lot of that part. The working part, the learning part that you have to go through, is just like, just, it's easy, you know.
It's incredible. I mean, when you were just talking, I kept running my head through some of the projects that I've worked on personally, and what you were saying really just come to bear, because a ton of it that is really not just fun. Like, you just want to get through this as quickly as possible. But there is truly is a place for, doing something because you know what you're getting out of it, what the end goal is. That's beautiful. I'm talking about end goal. You have some beautiful end goals, like some creative, beautiful work that you've done over the years. And as a creative and as a technical director at the same time, you have had that opportunity to be able to combine both. I say superpowers, that's what I'll call it, because, like, I'm really a big fan of how you do your work. But are there times where they just don't agree? I'm curious.
Oh yeah, I have actually a perfect example for that. Actually, for first and foremost, I love the quote by John Lasseter: "The art challenges the technology, and the technology inspires the art." And I think that is, especially in visual effects, animation, and games, I think
Mm,
that is absolutely true, because at the end of the day, the new technology allows us to create things that we were not able to do, and a lot of times we create shaders and new technology because there is art that wants to express, and then, but we don't have anything to do. Like Avatar: The Way of Water is an example for, the technology was not there, so James Cameron was waiting until the technology was there to show the water and so on. So, but he was pushing at the same time the technology, and at the same time the art pushed the technology, and the technology created new art. So this is my
mm,
favorite thing. There was a project I had at the Film Academy, was my favorite project in terms of this situation. It's called Anyman, and basically
mhm.
the project was about, it was the My Bridge. So My Bridge is this photographer. He was the first person who recorded a video. So basically, he put a lot of cameras next to each other, and maybe you saw this horse that was like riding, and you see that like on a side,
Mm,
and it's a very famous video picture slideshow. And so he basically created the first moving picture. And the two creators I was working with, they wanted to create something like that, but flip the coin and basically have a human move as an animal. So we had like a human fly as a bird, a human run as a dog, fall
wow.
as a cat, basically. And it was
Wow.
so challenging because at the end of the day, if a human runs as a dog, there is a physical thing that are not the same. We have not the same
Mhm.
body, not the same
Yeah.
muscle, and so on. And so there was always this fight between uncanny valley,
Yeah.
so it looks weird and abstract. And so what we did is we literally put like 16, 17 GoPros in a room, and then we just put markers on a cat, on a dog, and on a bird, and we just let them run through that. And we actually put the cat and we upside down, and we let it spin so it will like fall on
Wow.
the on its paws. And we recorded that because we wanted to, and we had used this motion capture data on the human. So we scanned the human, photogrammetry, and then basically applied that. So basically, the scanned human, which looked relatively real, was running like a cat, flying like a bird,
Mhm.
and it didn't work. it just didn't work because the thing was, um, like, yes, we got the information, we got the scan, it was relatively realistic, we got the movements, which was also relatively realistic, but when we combined that, it looked awkward. And we had literally to make the decision: either we change the movement so it looks okayer but looks less like birdie and so on, or we
Mm.
change and we keep it and it looks like uncanny and weird. And we kept it at the end mostly real as we got it. But at the end of the day, the making of actually is better than the movie itself. So the movie is kind of is nice, but if you saw it, you would not, like, your mind will not be blown like Avatar, for
Mm.
example, where you're like, wow, this is amazing. It's just like, it just looks like a project that is like not finished at the end, basically, because it
Yeah.
looks still weird. But if you see the making of and you see how we record a bird flying through that, with all the cameras around it, how we scanned a person with like an X of cameras
Mhm.
on rails around that. It just looks amazing. So it became like the making of the whole procedure
Mm.
became the movie for me at the end of the day. So it was not the movie. And so that was where it was clashing and it didn't work. But for me personally, and I think because it was also like a film academy project, it was the perfect mix because I really learned all the things from there. I learned how to learn. I learned how to challenge myself, and I also learned that it fails sometimes.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, that's the point of something like a school or a film academy or something like that, is to learn, not to succeed. That's good. That's obviously this would be nice, but I had much more from that by the whole process. So like the making of being good, but the movie not being good is from a learning perspective perfect because I could experience all of that and I could do like when do you have an opportunity to have a huge buzzard flying through a studio with
Right.
markers on it and GoPros around it? It doesn't happen that very often. So
Mhm.
like and that is part of learning. At the end of the day, like even people who come to my Python course, they sometimes they fail constantly. It's just normal
Mhm.
because it's something new, and you just have to be aware. Even if you learn art or technology, part of learning is to fail, and sometimes part of trying to combine them is to figure out it doesn't work.
I've seen how you've built a system with the way you have, built the program and expanded the teaching and broken it down. And I'm thinking about the future of let me not go that far. Let me not say the future, but looking at even the present with the way technology has become more accessible with AI and what people are able to do with stable diffusion and so on and so forth. And I'm curious as to what are your predictions when it comes to the future of the creative, the technical creative? What are your predictions as to what will happen? I mean, I'm curious. Someone like I'm sure you have a lot of ideas bouncing around your head, and a lot of
Mm.
postulations and thoughts about it. But I'd love to know what are your predictions?
So we recently I have like a new event that is like at the moment internal. We will also sometimes open it up for public. And on that one, we recently talked about AI, for example, and
Mm.
because it is such an important topic, especially for the technical people, but obviously also for artistic people. And it was literally like we were talking about where this is going. And at the end of the day, like my what I see is, and it's a little bit what Bill Gates once said. So he said once, I would always hire the most laziest person because
Mm.
they find the simplest way to get to that. And I always say, if you are TD, you're probably the most laziest person in the room because you don't want to do the same thing again and again and again. You want to write a script, you press a button, and it's done. There is
Yeah.
for me, there is a little bit of lazy. It's a little bit how I started to become a better programmer is because I was working on something and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that again. So I was like, okay, is there something I can write maybe? So I wrote a script. Oh, okay, cool. So like it sounds weird, but the laziness basically created opportunities, and
Mm.
that's how I see AI, for example, too. I see it as an opportunity. It's like use it. Like if you are an artist and it helps you to make your art, great. If you are a TD or a programmer, Python programmer, and it helps you to do a better job, faster job, great. I don't see it at the moment replacing us, for example, but I see, for example, that it sometimes will help you to do a better job, will help you to understand something faster. And
Mm.
I just say basically at the moment, like ChatGPT is something like Google 2.0. It's like instead
Yeah.
of like having you have a problem, instead of like looking through links and trying to figure it out, you can directly ask a person, or in this case the AI, uh, what is the solution, and it will not be always correct, and it will not always be great, but it is like a forum where you type in your question and there's like people
Mm.
answering you. That's a little bit like that. It's like you type your question and there is a
Mhm.
competent but maybe sometimes faulty person answering you,
Mm.
and it saves you time sometimes just to use it. So my prediction basically is use everything that will help you to do a better job, use everything that will help you to do a faster job. And that's why I teach Python. That's one of the reasons, beside the opportunity of technical environment and having more stability, more money, having a better reputation, is also to work faster, to work, to
Mm.
don't repeat the same thing, so you can automate processes, and that's what AI also does on some levels. So for me, it's always this angle of how can you make your work better and focus on the things that you really care about.
Mm.
You don't always care about everything you do. You sometimes have to do some things that's just part of the job. But if you can do Python to automate the boring stuff, or you can use a little bit AI to automate the confusion or the boring stuff, that's perfect. And so that's how I see it. I'm rarely threatened by it. I try to see it as, hey, I should keep my eyes open and
Mm.
see where can I use it to help me do a better job.
That is spot on. That is spot on. Alex, it's been good having this conversation. I have to bring it to a close right now. I wish I could
Thank
didn't
you.
have to, but I am looking forward to another opportunity to chat with you again. But in the meantime, can you talk me through like what should we expect from Alex? I mean, we are crossing over to we're entering the new year and whatnot, and this will most likely air in the new year. So, but I'm just curious, like, what should I expect from Alex? Like, Alex has done such an incredible work so far in his last few years. Anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, so at the moment I start this new event. It's called the TD Meetup, which I basically want to have this monthly meeting where we talk about something like AI. We talk about presenting as a tech nerd. This will be the next one. And so that's one of the things I'm currently working on. And the other one, I'm like Python for Houdini and stuff like that. But I also want to do more collaborations. It's something that I kind of missed a little bit the last years, maybe a little bit from the COVID time. So I think that is a little bit what I'm focusing on, is to find to find this element where I can just create content in collaboration, bring people in, enjoy the different perspectives, and more podcasts. That's something I would like to do also, and more traveling. And one of the things I also focus on, I would like to be more in person. I definitely planning to go more into studios and into schools and just kind of have this in-person interaction. And I think that is something where I kind of want to figure out, is like, is there a way to bring this more to the people, to have a shift of understanding. And I think that is a little bit my focus, but I also try to figure out a way to communicate the things that we just talked about. It's like, how can you understand that learning is fun? How can you, like, or AI is not the bad thing here. It's actually, as
Yeah.
long as it's going in some kind of decent direction, it's something that actually, like Google, before we had Google, it was hard to find information. Before we
It
had
was.
the internet, it was hard to communicate. So AI is, I see it on the same level. It's just like something that helps, and just to understand things, and understand elements like Python is not like, just because you're an artist you can still learn it. Just because you are this, you can still learn that. And I think that is something that I always try to do, is to build bridges. And that is what a technical director actually does. Is the bridge between a technical person and the artist. That's what a TD actually does, and that's basically what I try to do in the future. Hopefully, with a lot of collaborations with a lot of people, And yeah, such podcasts as yours, and talking about that, and having like such an amazing time just to kind of like, express ourselves, and having interesting questions like yours to be like, show where things are coming. Because I think, and that's my last thing that I want to say, is like, a lot of times we feel like our life is so different than everyone else, or we have it harder than everyone else. And some lives obviously are harder, but everyone else has a difficult life to some degree, or like, everyone has a story, everyone has problems, everyone has this and that, and it obviously is different. But at the end of the day, what I absolutely believe is that everyone can learn basically everything, and it's just a matter of hard work, and having the right mindset, and then creating opportunities. And obviously, it takes sometimes longer. It's not for everyone the same time frame, obviously. But at the end of the day, I believe if you are willing to do the work, and you're willing to find the right angle, which is sometimes you have to find, because it's, yeah, you think it's this, but it's not. I started law. It was not my thing. I studied me computer science. It was halfway. So there was a lot of, like, that's the thing. A lot of people think like my career, or everyone's career who is like working on Avatar and so on, is a straight path, and it's never.
Mm.
Like, I've never heard anyone telling me like, oh yeah, this is where I started. I knew exactly how I get to this part, basically. And I think that is the important part, and that's basically what I try to do. Besides sharing that everyone can do everything, also sharing the path that I learned to get from where you are to where you want to be. And it's often just a question of like, yeah, like, our mentors are basically the people who shorten the time to arrive. Everyone will have a path like this, but with mentors and good education, you basically, it's just less time to get there, basically. So that's up for me for 2024.
Alex, you are a gem, and I really do hope that people are as fortunate as I have been to have connected with you. I hope that in their journey they find people like you to be their mentors. It's been such a great conversation, and yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you.